All right. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear and see me okay. My name is Carrie. I'm City Market's Assistant Outreach and Education Manager. I'm the one who's been sending you all of the emails for this class. First of all, thank you so much for your flexibility with having to postpone and reschedule this class. We were too early for Rhubarb season, and then we had to change the date. So thank you all so much for being willing to come on a different date and tune in. Super excited for this one. I love strawberry rhubarb pie, so I can't wait to eat tonight. This is the only time that you'll see me on screen. After this, I'm going to go behind the scenes and I will be in charge of the question and answer box. So if at any point during tonight's class you have a question or a comment for our instructor or for me, you can type that in. I'll go back and put an announcement in there so you can see where that is and how to access it. You should see a little red dot kind of pop up with a new question. And I will be able to see those and either pass them along to our instructor, Gary, or answer them myself through text if it's something that I can answer on my end as well. So you might get a text response as well. If you're joining us a little bit late, go ahead and hit live. It's down at the bottom near the play pause button. That catches you up to where we are in the stream rather than making you start watching the we will go live soon screen from the very beginning. On that note, you are watching at about a 30-second delay from what we are streaming out. So if you're like, oh, I typed my question a while ago and I haven't gotten to it yet, what's going on? Just know that maybe you haven't caught up to the part where we started answering it yet. So you're on about 30 seconds from what we are saying live. I think that's it from me. Without further ado, I'll turn things over to our instructor, Gary. Take it away.
Thank you, Carrie. Hi, I'm Gary Stuard, the pie guy, and happy summer. The summer solstice was yesterday, and then we're starting our slide to fall and winter, but it's still summer. And while I do love the fall and the wintertime, I also love, and this is the time for some great pie making. And as Carrie said earlier, I had hoped that we could have done my strawberry rhubarb orange liqueur in time for Easter. Either fresh or frozen, at least frozen. Here, that was not available. Now, rhubarb is just all over the place. And so this is a great summer dish for folks. This is picnic time. This is barbecue time. This is sitting around, maybe a fire outside or under a shady tree, having some wine and have some strawberry rhubarb pie with orange liqueur with vanilla ice cream. Perfect combination. So just to show you what we're aiming for.
Sorry for the audio issues, folks. They should be totally fixed now, but let me know if not.
So this is what we're going to fix. This is strawberry rhubarb pie. I just took it out of the oven about 45 minutes ago. So letting it cool a little bit. I hope you had a good look at that. And so what we're going to do is start with pie crust. And everyone, well, not everyone, but quite a few people feel like, oh, I can't do pies because I don't know how to do pie crust. And I just want to say, rubbish, rubbish. Making pie crust is really not that complicated. There are just some things to keep in mind. One, I try to go as organic as I can, cost allowing. Also, but even more important, is keeping everything well chilled. Your flour, your sugar, your butter. I mean, I keep my flour and my sugar in the freezer. And that, when I was working on that pie earlier today, it was cold when I was working the butter into the flour. But that's good because you want your shortening and your butter cold when you're working it into the flour mixture, because you don't want those the butter, fat, and the shortening start melting. You want to have distinct pockets of butter and shortening because that will keep the crust flaky. Now, shortening helps with the flakiness also. Butter is for flavor, but you want to have your butterfat and your shortening cold so they don't start melting right away, or you're going to have a gummy, rubbery pie crust, and you don't want that. So these have been chilled. I use the Spectrum non-hydrogenated shortening. I am from the South, and we all use Crisco. My mother did. But this is a little bit healthier. It's non-hydrogenated. So, and I do like Spectrum. They do a good job. While this is not organic, I love King Arthur flour. It's really good, but this has been chilled, and so has the sugar. So let's get started with the flour.
Yeah, Miriam says that the pie looks amazing. And Alice has a question. The recipe for the pie crust says 1 cup chilled. Is it supposed to be half a cup? And did we just have a little typo there? Is it half a cup of chilled shortening? See how it says like 1/?
Yeah, it is supposed to be half.
Half a cup. Great.
Half a cup. I doubled the recipe this morning because I made that pie dough, and then I have pie dough already done, so we can proceed with making the pie, because I usually let 30 minutes or an hour for the pie dough after I make it for it to chill. You don't want to start rolling it out after you just made the combination of, you know, the shortening, the flour, the butter, and the cold water, and then just roll it out. You want it to get chill so it's not sticky and it's more easy to work with. Okay.
Yeah. And for the person asking me how Teams works, yes, we are live streaming out to you, but we do not see your screens or hear you. You are just watching us. So that way, if you have a question, go ahead and type it into the Q&A box, and that's how we will see it. There's no unmute option or anything like that. We are just streaming out. So I can answer your question.
Sifter.
Yep, right to your right-hand side on that shelf, kind of shoulder height. There you go.
Thank you. Sorry about that, folks. So I always sift. So the recipe calls for 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. 1.
Have you ever done a comparison and done a pie crust unsifted and sifted and noticed a difference, or is it just habit at this point?
It's habit at this point. And I've never seen a recipe that didn't ask for sifted. I mean, for a pie crust. I think it helps, you know, fluffing it up. Okay, 2.5 there. And I need 3 teaspoons of sugar. 1, 2, 3. Now, if you're going to be making a pâte sucré dough, which is really for tarts, you would use butter, not shortening, and a lot more sugar. It's like a cookie pie dough, okay? But for this, that is sufficient. And 3/4 teaspoon of salt.
Oh, we have another question coming in. Don't get mad about this one. Someone asked, can you use a pre-made pie crust?
Oh, yes, you can, but
You're showing us how easy it is. You don't need
yeah, I mean, why watch? Well, for the filling, I mean, yes. The filling, yeah. I mean, but I mean, store-bought crust just doesn't taste as good as what you can make from scratch. If my mother or her mother, I mean, you know, frozen pie dough, it would be blasphemy. I mean, it just would be stark raving blasphemy. You don't do it. And why would you sell yourself short? And so, I mean, folks are free to do what they want, and I can understand if you're in a real pinch, but I don't know if I've seen two crust like discs of pre-made pie.
You can get the ones that are rolled up like around parchment, and you
maybe
let them thaw
I haven't personally. I haven't seen them, but why would you? Don't you want to say, I made this from scratch, you know? And I have to tell you, between store-bought pie crust and homemade pie crust, there is no comparison. There is not. Okay. Do you want just a simple thank you for making a pie, or do you want them to worship you because you made it from scratch and it'll taste better than anything they ever had? So there you go.
Ruby's asking, can you use just butter? Do you have to do the shortening?
That depends on, I follow the recipe. I follow the recipe of the pie dish or tart dish that I'm looking at. For a regular pie, I mean, I've seen, like, for a regular pie, some will use just butter. I mean, you can do that. Others, they want a mix. And I like having both shortening and butter because butter provides the flavor. Shortening provides the flakiness. Okay. And as I said before, for like doing a pâte sucrée, like a tart recipe, usually it's just butter because you want to have like a sugar cookie dough for your tart. So, I mean, you just look at your recipe and see. I know some people just use shortening.
Butter flavor shortening.
Or just do butter. Some people still use lard. So, it's just what do you want? So, but usually if I look at a recipe and I try it and I like it, I usually just follow the recipe. And I should give a shout out to Carol Walter, who's Great Pies and Tart. I got this recipe from. Now I modified it to my taste, but you can look at pie books, tart books, and see their recipes and try them out and see if you want to modify them or not. So anyway, now I have sifted my flour.
We have someone asking, is it better to weigh your flour to avoid differences in how much you pack into the cup?
That is a good point. I've never bothered with that. It just says 2.5 cups. Okay. And then I sift it. So my mother and her mother, we haven't been like exact, but if you want to do that, fine. But it just says 2.5 cups. Okay. And with the salt and sugar, and then I sift it. It's never had a problem with it. So.
And Gary's made a lot of pies, so.
Over 30 some odd years, yes, I have. Now, I've seen recipes where they talked about, cutting little small cubes of butter to work it in. This is how I do it. It's thin. It's easy to work into the flour. You don't have to struggle with the big clumps of butter. And as you can see what I'm doing, I'm just kind of working the butter into the flour like that, kind of spreading the butter so it's breaking it apart. A good thing is don't just grate the whole stick of butter all at once, and you just have a pile of butter. And then that will be harder to kind of work the flour in without the butter clumping all at once. And then it just defeats the purpose of grating it, so you have something you can work with, okay? But I just stumbled on this, or it just occurred to me, why not use this? Wouldn't this be easier? And lo and behold, heck, it was. It was a heck of a lot easier. So, so with this is, I'm going to use a 1/2 cup of butter, and that's 1 stick. So I just do this. Also, I should try to have some ice water. Like if I could have 2 cups of ice water, so I can have that ready.
All right, so I lied. You will see me on camera.
Yeah, sometimes I realize, oh, I need this. So even when you try to be as prepared as possible, there's always something. It teaches humility. How about that? So there we go. And again, I have my thin slices of butter, and which helps me to work with it very easily. And again, I mean, people can use a food processor. Just follow instructions. You can Google like, okay, how to make pie crust with a food processor, and just follow accordingly. I like my mother and her mother, they didn't have that, especially Grandma Creagh. I think some of you may be return viewers, and I've told you about Grandma Creagh, who my mom's mom, who her husband and she had a cafe outside of Breckenridge, Texas, between Fort Worth and Abilene, middle of nowhere, country cafe. And she did the cooking, he did the talking, but her pies were, I mean, the best pies, the most beautiful pies I have ever seen. And they just inspired me at a very early age to be interested in cooking, because when she made her pies, they were like manifestations of love. They really were. And that's why I think pie making really stuck with me, because it's like I want to be able to make something that beautiful, that tasty, and to help people feel like I love you, I see you. And I felt seen and heard and valued and loved by her. So pie making for me, as I've said many times before, is a way of expressing my love for the people I care for, and also as an organizer, activist, and now a union organizer with our union here, UE, at our store. Building community is, for me, one of the most important things about being an activist, about being an organizer, or just being active in your community, is that food is a wonderful way of bringing people together. Good food, okay? Don't just bring a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, okay? If you're having a hard time having time to do something, well, that's fine. But you want to be able to create something that is good and you love, and so you're sharing your creativity and your love with your friends or your larger community, and people get it. People really appreciate that. And if we ever need to develop community, it's nowadays, folks. We really need to be in solidarity with each other. And one way of building that is making an absolutely fabulous pie, okay? I feel that way. So now we got to, and as you work that in, you can see little lumps, not huge clumps, but little lumps of butter. Now, what we're going to do is work in our shortening.
And again, it's 1/2 cup of shortening. Apologies that the recipe had a typo in it. 1/2 cup.
Was it?
I think.
I had. Oh yes, that is a.
It's just
typo.
missing the 2.
Yes, my bad.
So 1 cup of fat total. 1/2 of it is butter. 1/2 of it is shortening.
Right. So my apologies. It is I was trying to get this in before I went off to labor notes, and the largest union conference or convention in the United States last week in Chicago, and it was like, oh, I got to get this. I have to get this to Carrie.
Figured it out. It worked.
It worked.
If you get the shortening sticks, you know how like there's the Crisco sticks, can
Then,
you do the same?
Yeah, you
with the
can do
grater?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. My mother used Crisco sticks.
We should get Spectrum to start making sticks.
Right. You know, to me, it doesn't even matter. But the thing is, if you're going to use this with those sticks, you better refrigerate them, okay? Make sure that they're firm.
Yep.
You don't want soft,
Could you use whole wheat flour?
yes, you can. I would look at a recipe for that. You want to make sure you get the right amount of flour. Sometimes I've seen recipes call for a mixture of whole wheat plus some white flour, because just whole wheat flour, it may, you want to be, I think if you just use whole wheat flour, it'll be a little bit heavier, maybe a little tougher. I don't know. It'll be different. So I've seen recipes where they have some whole wheat and then some regular wheat flour. So, but I would look at some recipes for whole wheat flour. I mean, if you want to use whole wheat flour, and I believe that this book, I think, does that too, if you want to look at that. I mean, there's different flours. And so, again, for me, is what is the recipe calling for? But again, if I want to have a little more fiber in my cooking, then I'll look for, okay, how about a pastry crust that has some whole wheat in it?
Great.
So that's perfectly fine. And it's good that people are asking, the questions, how would you do it if you did this? Again, I do my research on the recipes I want, and I usually just follow what the recipe is calling for. Now, I have made non-gluten crusts, but I follow the recipe, and I really liked it. And you can substitute a non-gluten crust for this, though being that way, my experience was, it's a little bit more, you have to handle it a little more gingerly. It's not as, it crumbles a little bit more easily than this, because this one has gluten in it, okay? But you still can do it. So with a non-gluten crust, I probably wouldn't try to do a lattice work with it, cutting the dough into strips. I would just roll out 2 discs.
I'm going to borrow your book really quick so I can put the title and author into the chat.
Right.
And then I will give it back.
And that's one of my go-tos, along with St. Martha Stewart, even though she went to prison, but she knows how to cook. Her original Pies and Tart book, which came out in, I guess, in the mid-'80s, that has been a Bible for me. It's also beautiful, beautiful photos.
So, Great Pies and Tarts with a Primer for the Beginner by Carol Walter.
Yes, it's a fun
book. I put it in the chat.
It's a fun book. I love it. Now, as you can see, we have little pea-sized shaped pockets of butter and shortening, and that's what you want. You want to have those pockets of fat, butter fat, and shortening. Now we're ready for the water, ice water or cold water. And the thing at this stage is to be thank you very much, be very, very careful not to overdo all at once. Because the last thing we want, after perfectly combining our butterfat and our shortening in the flour, sugar, and salt mixture, is to dump too much water in, and then it just becomes like soup, or something super, super sticky.
Glue.
Yeah, like glue, and that is not what you want. Sometimes you can salvage a pie dough by adding a little more flour and just gradually working it in. So, but let's avoid that. So this is not even a cup of cold water. And I just add, a little bit, and then I work it. It takes a while for the moisture to kind of become evenly distributed to the flour mixture.
I love how I like to make pies too, and you can tell the weather by how much water you need to add.
Yeah.
So like a really humid day, you might not need to add as much. It's kind of like rainy and gross here today.
Right. And again, if I don't have to do it as much here in Vermont, but in Texas, especially now that is like a hellscape down there, I would stick my metal bowl in the freezer to keep it ice cold because I didn't have central air. And our kitchen could get rather warm. And so anything to keep your dough or the flour mixture in the process of making the dough chilled, then, do whatever it takes to keep it cold. But here, that's not as important. And we have a window. Fred, my husband Fred, who is here, he is the handsome one in the corner. We have an AC in the kitchen, which surely helps. But even today, personally, I really didn't need it.
Yeah.
So
it's not too bad today. Friday and Saturday are like close to 90.
Yeah, and yuck. And so, okay, as you can see, it's clumping, but it's still too much powderiness in the mixture. So again, always don't put in too much all at once. And again, I just do it like this. I keep doing it. Work it in a little bit. Don't just think, oh, I need more water. No, work it in because like I said earlier, it takes a while for the water to work through the flour mixture. Now you can see it's starting to clump more. So what I'm going to do at this time is say, okay, if I use my hands, and you can use gloves if you want to, that's fine. My mother and my grandmother, they always washed their hands. And back in those days, they didn't have latex gloves easily available. So you just wash your hands reasonably. So this looks like it's clumping. So I probably do not need any more water. Now, having a gin and tonic is okay. You just don't put it in the crust, but you keep hydrated when you're cooking. So my lovely husband got me a, what is it?
Seltzer.
Seltzer.
A non-alcoholic seltzer. You're not
non-alcoholic. There is no alcohol. Well, we do carry beer and wine here. And
there's alcohol in the pie, but not in the instructor.
Yeah, and not in here and not during cooking. But in the store, we have a great selection of beer and wine. And one of my jobs here is doing inventory on beer and wine on Sundays, as well as keeping the beer and wine stocked on Sundays. So, but look at that. I mean, already, as you can see, I didn't need any more water. This is perfectly done.
Yeah, and it's not really sticking to your hands at all.
Just a
little
bit, but that's how it goes. I mean,
someone says that they literally just bought that pie book online used.
Oh,
just bought it.
You'll love it. I haven't used all the recipes. I should, explore that more, but I found some really good ones in there. So you'll have a great time.
You should do like a challenge for yourself where in a year You bake every
All
single
of
recipe,
them,
like
yeah.
start on January 1st. And
Go through it, sort of like a
Julia and Julia,
Julia, yeah, which Fred and I love that movie. It's great. I'm not interested in doing hot cuisine. There could be some that I would like. So, but anyway, here we are. That's a nice dough. And what I would do is, I mean, you can do it now, half it.
there is a
Or,
bench scraper in that drawer if you want one to have it, or
oh, I'll just say
do it at home.
half it later. That's
So yeah, what you've made right here is both the top and the bottom crust.
It's the
for one
top and the
pie. Yep.
bottom. Okay. Now I have done it to where I just roll out that dough and have a folded over, but I tried to see if I could cook. Oh, and where's the slicer?
Oh, and I'll grab it for you in this.
Oh, thank
drawer.
you. At a kitchen, and he preferred, thank you very much. And this is exactly what I have at home. He preferred, not having a folded over, which is sort of like a Gillette in a way.
Galette, yep.
Yeah, Gillette, and it was a little bit too thick, the crust at certain points. So I was like, okay, I'll just roll out both of the doughs. So now.
And yes, for the person joining us, this is being recorded. We'll release it on our website at a later date. We're a little bit behind on our backlog of class recordings, but we will put this up later so that you can follow along.
Okay, cool. And now we're ready to roll out the dough. By the way, how many do we have joining us?
There are currently 33 people logged on.
Excellent.
We'd also love to know where you're watching from. If you want to post in the Q&A box kind of your location, it's always fun to see that we're getting people outside of Burlington, Vermont, which is great.
Now, as you can see, I'm putting flour on the board, the cutting board, which is also the rolling out the dough board. This is to prevent sticking of the flour onto the board. You want that. So there's enough for me to roll the dough in.
34 people now.
All right.
South Carolina.
All right. What other places?
That's the only one that's coming in so far. I'll read them out as they come in.
In the past, we've had people from California, San Francisco, Los Angeles. We had folks from Missouri.
England? Wasn't there someone in England once in your
Canada, for sure. We had somebody from Canada join.
Essex, Vermont, Orlando, Florida, San Diego, California, St. Paul, Minnesota. Awesome.
Right
So right now. We're getting the spread.
Wow, excellent. Yeah, we had folks from Texas a couple of times ago, from El Paso, San Antonio.
Doing that. Not sure why it keeps doing that.
What's it doing?
It's just the sound keeps going a little glitchy.
Okay. And as you can see, I love this kind of rolling pan. I had the more traditional ones, but to me, this just feels good. I believe it's a French, pastry rolling pin. So I like it. It just seems my hands feel good working with it.
All right, we're back.
So try to keep it as circular as possible. Now, what I'm going to do is brush off. Having a pastry brush is such a big help. It really is. And you'll feel so professional using it.
We've got some more people chiming in. We've got San Fran, Monterey Park, California, Cincinnati, Ohio, Milton, Vermont.
Wow.
Portland, Oregon, and Manteca, California.
Wow.
Welcome, everybody. That's awesome. We're getting a really wide spread tonight.
That's great. And it just amazes me how our store has the cooking platform that we have. The cooking program has so many people from so many different places. That just, to me, that's so awesome.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Silver linings in all of this.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it's great. And even when we go to where we can have in-person classes, I think it'd be great for us to have it a hybrid where people can, check in via internet.
That's the hope. Some in person and some virtual.
Right.
I'm not sure how well I could do a class that was both at the same time.
Well, yeah,
But
I know
do
it can be a challenge. But I like that we can, have such an outreach. That to me is amazing.
Yeah.
That really is amazing. Okay, as you can see, here I am. Of course, I want to raise it up to work out the air bubbles. You don't want to have bubbles underneath your crust, if at all possible. Trying to make sure that we have enough overhang on the crust throughout the pie.
Oh, wow.
pan.
Someone commented, I looked for rhubarb at market in San Diego about 2 weeks ago. It was $10 a pound.
Good
I think
Lord,
ours is
have
like
mercy.
$6 a pound, $4, $5 a pound somewhere here.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I wonder if it's just like not in season over there anymore.
I don't
West Coast.
know. I would check to see if they have frozen, because down in Dallas, Dallas is not rhubarb country. Texas normally isn't. It's a cold weather plant or cooler climate plant, but I was able to get frozen.
Mm-hmm.
So when rhubarb season was over, I could get frozen rhubarb. So now we got that done.
We did have somebody ask if you were going to use frozen fruit like strawberry and rhubarb. Can you do that? Would you thaw it first or toss it frozen?
No, you don't, because then it'll just be a
Mush.
mess. No, more so the strawberry than the rhubarb. I would just mix it frozen. It's going to get cooked.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you may need to cook it just a tad longer, but being careful your crust doesn't start burning.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't want that. Okay, so I have already
Yeah, we weren't going to make you watch Gary chop, 3 cups of strawberries and 3 cups of rhubarb. You know what that looks like.
Yeah, I want to spare you the torture of watching me wash and hull and slice in half the whole strawberries. My hubby did that. And
Oh, thanks, Fred.
Very grateful. Rinsing the rhubarb and cutting, which I did.
He gets to eat the pie at the end.
So. Oh, he gets first dibs.
Yeah.
He always gets first dibs. So maybe if I could get a larger spoon.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Should have gotten that earlier. So I'm mixing. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Mixing these together.
It almost makes me wonder if you could freeze the mixed straw, like
yes,
if you knew you were going to make
pie.
I
think you can do it.
Just mix them and then freeze them.
Yeah,
cool.
You can do it. You can get your fruit, freeze blueberries, which I think our next one will be doing lavender blueberry pie.
Coming up sometime, yes.
Yes, hopefully. And I came up with that combo and actually won a pie competition for best fruit pie at a pie competition in one of the Dallas neighborhoods. So that was fun. I enjoyed that. So, and if you put in a little more strawberries or a little more rhubarb, that is fine. I put in a little extra because I didn't want to have my strawberries go to waste. I got a little bit more than I needed, but that is fine. So now is 3/4 cup of sugar, or to taste. I'm from the South. There's never too much sugar. Well, I don't want to go that far, but
yes, the strawberries were hulled, so remove the green tops.
They were Yeah,
Someone asked
please
that.
cull your strawberries.
And you can, if you hull strawberries, you can put the hulls in white wine vinegar and let them steep, and then make yourself strawberry vinegar
Ooh.
because it soaks up all the little bits that you
Oh,
kind
no,
of
that,
miss when you cut.
that's a great idea. I
Yeah.
haven't done that before.
And then here's someone, I think it's the person who was looking in California. I don't know if it grows well out here. It's too warm. They're going to look to see if it's sold frozen near them. They didn't know that it was ever sold frozen.
Yeah, like I said, I was able to find it in Dallas.
Mhm.
Now, and here in the recipe, I have half a teaspoon of orange zest. I always up mine. I usually double it because I want a dessert that the taste of it slaps you lovingly in the face. It's like you're having pie, okay? But to your taste. I always like to jack it up a bit, taste-wise. But that's just me. So I would also have a teaspoon of cinnamon. But again, if you want to just at this time have half a teaspoon, that's fine. I just know, after making this, I kind of find out what I like. So, you want to, if you have never done this before, go by the recipe. And then if you think, well, I think I would like a little more cinnamon, or maybe use nutmeg. Okay. Also, I didn't use the lemon juice. Try the lemon juice. What I used was orange juice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after zesting the oranges, it was like, well, what am I going to do with all that juice? So go ahead and use the lemon juice. But again, I used orange juice. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. I use a little more than just a teaspoon. But I would, if this was your first time to do it, use 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, okay? And then after that, like I said before, you can experiment. You see, do I want a little more lemon forward? And you'll see in different recipes of the same thing, you'll see different combinations. People have different tastes. So for right now, just follow this recipe. And it's a good one.
Did you do the cornstarch?
I'm going to do the
Okay, and then
cornstarch.
also someone asked about the orange liqueur.
Oh,
It's not
yeah,
on the recipe either.
it's not in there. It's not there, but
They were like, this class was advertised with alcohol.
this is an empty bottle, thoroughly rinsed. I can't have like a bottle of alcohol, like liquor,
Yeah.
hard liquor, hard spirits here. But this is what I use. Control. And you can use Grand Marnier. That's what I've used before. And let's see, where did I put my liquor? I know I had it here somewhere.
I think it's the, yep.
Oh, yeah, right here. So this is about 2 tablespoons.
I was just thinking it could be really good if you like lemon, to do lemon zest and limoncello instead.
Yeah,
of the
you
orange.
could. Yeah, there's different ways of doing this.
Yeah.
So that's being very creative. Yep. So Grandma Creagh and my mother, especially Grandma Creagh, didn't, have the kind of access to alcohol, the different kinds that we do now. The only one she had was Grandpa Creagh's medicine, which was Old Crow. And you would not want to use Old Crow in this. But over the years, I've tried out recipes that you would put some alcohol in it, and it just pops it out. Just pops it out. I don't do that with every fruit pie or dessert, but when the recipe calls for it, it's for a darn good reason. Okay, now it's time for cornstarch. And pardon me, as I dry this. So any feedback from folks so far that we haven't looked at yet?
No, just the question on the recipe says to actually mix all the dry ingredients separately and sprinkle some in the pie shell, but will it work the same if you just mix it in the filling?
Yeah.
Cool. And someone else has asked, if I used Amazon frozen rhubarb in light syrup, do you think it would need to be rinsed? They can find it on Amazon, but it's in syrup, not just plain. Would you rinse
You mean
it?
a sugar syrup?
Yeah, I think it's in like canned.
Well, you don't have to rinse it. If it's sugar, then taste it.
Probably drain it,
And
not all that liquid. Right?
yeah, I mean, you could drain it. It depends, I guess, how liquidy it is. If it is sugary, it depends what they mean by syrup.
Yeah.
If
I'll
it's
have to look at
really
the link.
syrupy, then you may want to cut back on your sugar. Taste it and see how sweet it is. That may, if it's like sugar syrup.
Let's see if I can get the link to work and check that out.
So I may put in a little bit more. So that's 3 or 4 tablespoons of. But that's a good point about mixing the dry ingredients. I'm just so used to just a little bit at a time, but that is also a good way of doing it. So, as you know, I don't perhaps always follow exactly how the recipe is put down. I'm just a creature of habit. So, but yeah, do it how you feel comfortable with. Just make sure you have all the ingredients in it. So
we always say that with our recipes is that follow what they're doing, not the way it's written, because everybody's learned how to do things differently.
Right. But again, you know, if you think, well, I kind of like doing, you know, the powder stuff. And, you know, for a lot of recipes, it makes sense that you're going to do that, you know. So again, I would say follow the recipe. I'm just so used to doing it the way my mother did it and her mother did it. So right here, you have your sugar, your fruit, your sugar, about a cup of sugar, 3 to 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, a tablespoon of ground cinnamon, a tablespoon, maybe slightly more, of the orange zest, and I put in a tablespoon of the orange juice because I had it available. But I would say, you know, if you use the lemon juice, a teaspoon or 2, depending how tart you wanted to go forward. But I would go with 1 teaspoon of lemon juice at the beginning. So we got the filling done. And now it's time to roll out the other dough, the top. Well, I think I have enough flour here to do it. And again, you know, when I'm doing something for the first time, a recipe, I will follow the recipe pretty much, unless I'm used to doing fruit pies and I kind of know what I like. But for folks who are doing this for the first time, it's good to follow the recipe. But then when you eat it, you can say, oh, this is good, but maybe it might, let's kick it up a little bit.
I might like nutmeg or cardamom. Or,
yeah, exactly. You know, and I love nutmeg with just regular rhubarb pie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I found that to be a nice mix right there. So experiment. But it's sort of like, unless you have a lot of experience making pies and tarts, first learn the basics. Once we know the basics, then we can experiment with You know, it's like artists. You know, Jackson Pollock didn't just graduate from fingerprinting, you know, finger painting. He studied, and such also with abstract artists. And Van Gogh, or Van Gogh, you know, his paintings at first or his drawings were very realistic, but but once you learn the basics, then you know how to play with them. Okay. So I am rolling out my dough. Again, trying to keep a circular, as close to a circular disc as possible.
Yeah, and you notice that Gary is lifting up his dough to make sure that it's not sticking too. I think that's, novice pie makers often just keep rolling until they get it right, and then it's completely stuck to the cutting board.
And believe you me, I have done that before, and so now it's like, no,
habit to keep pulling
it's
it up.
like, no, I just, that's too much of a bother. So
for the person asking about the canned rhubarb, I did some looking at that link, and it looks like it's just kind of mushy in the can, so it might not be the right texture for you. But
well,
you could always try it.
Yeah, go ahead and try it. You know, oh, and it's canned. It's not frozen. It's canned.
It's canned.
Well, if that's what you got,
yeah, but
work
try
with
it. Let us know. But I would definitely drain it. You don't want all that extra liquid.
Depends.
It's like looking at the pictures, it's like in a whole bunch of liquid.
Okay, pour out the liquid and taste the rhubarb. See if it's sweet enough. Again, I mean, I haven't tried it, so you may want to keep some of the liquid just in case.
Yeah.
But if the liquid is sweet, then you have to kind of figure out, well, how much then of sugar am I going to add to it? Okay. And also, you may need to have more than one bottle because, you know, it may be, you want to have a full pie.
Right. One or two cans might not be enough.
Yeah. You may need to have several.
But yeah, let us know. We'd be curious.
Yeah, let us know. Do we get feedback from folks later about?
Yeah, I send out a survey.
Good.
I'll send out a survey to you all tomorrow.
Oh yeah, because you know we're learning. This is community, believe it or not. We are learning from each other.
And also, if you do make pies later, take pictures and email them to me.
Oh
you all have my email. We'd love to see photos since we can't all be together. We want to see what you make in your own kitchens.
Unless, of course, the pie is on fire. And believe me, I
put it out before taking a picture.
Yeah. Listen, one Thanksgiving, it was Fred and my first Thanksgiving together as a couple, and we had moved into this charming but much needed renovation apartment. It's a duplex in Dallas, and we were still relatively new, and we were doing Thanksgiving. We wanted to have some folks over for Thanksgiving, so we got a nice turkey, organic, and put it in the oven, and we timed the time that we would be back, right, Fred, from visiting his family for Thanksgiving. And when we came back within the accepted time that we thought our turkey would be done, when we were upstairs, when we opened the stairwell door, smoke was coming, and it wasn't. No, we were not, and we found out we had an oven from hell. It was one of the gateways into the infernal world, and that poor turkey.
Didn't quite work out, huh?
Well, it wasn't carbonized,
thankfully.
That's good. Thankfully, we didn't have to call the police or the fire department, but the underside was okay. The top part,
not so much.
It was like a football, okay?
Oh boy.
That was, so everyone, we all have our stories that we laugh about, culinary disasters that maybe we were crying at the time, but afterwards they make a great story. So don't feel bad if something didn't quite work out. I mentioned before, and I think it's good to repeat it. My father, I think he probably exaggerated. I don't know if my mom did it all in one day, but he said that she tried to make a chocolate meringue pie and it didn't turn out right, so she threw it away, and then she tried to make another one, and that didn't work out. So she threw that one away, but then she did it the third time, and it came out right. Nowadays, I know how long it takes to make a chocolate meringue pie, and I can't imagine that she spent all day doing it. Maybe she did, when she, so, but I admire that. My mother stuck to it.
Marianne has a quick question. She asked, is the pastry brush dry that you're using? Or
yes, okay. Please.
Dry.
Please, when you're dealing with flour, yes, it should be dry. Okay. Now, I'm not going to do it with this one. The other pie, I made a glaze, which was a couple of tablespoons of a, let's see, what's the... Yeah, make a glaze with 2 tablespoons of milk, 2 teaspoons of sugar, and then at that point it won't be dry anymore. You make a glaze. Sometimes people make a glaze with egg yolk. Just get 1 egg yolk, beat it, and put it over your pie.
So it's not necessary for a good bake, it's just to make it shiny?
Yes, so it's to make it attractive. And but I did that with the other one, and it just makes it look really attractive. So the overhangs here aren't too bad, though maybe you can use scissors or you can use your hand.
So you do want a little bit of an overhang, but not a whole bunch.
But not super bad. But don't throw these away because you may need them, because it rarely happens that you get it all the sides are exactly the same length. So it's a little thin on some sides. So I will probably be using some of this overhang excess after I put this over. And as you see, I put in some butter. It's never too much butter. Well, yeah, it can, you can have a situation when you have too much butter, but flavor-wise, it's always great. Okay, so there's still some overhang here from the top crust. And again, this, you can see the difference, or if you've experienced working with non-gluten crusts, you wouldn't have this kind of elasticity with a non-gluten crust. You just won't. Okay, though I understand people, for health reasons, have to opt out against having, or have to opt for having gluten-free crusts. But you see what I'm doing? I'm just kind of folding it over. First, just kind of sealing the 2 crusts. By the way, perchance, would we have some milk in the refrigerator?
I don't think we do, but I can, other door, Fred.
If it's not there, then we won't worry about it.
Okay. I do have an egg. We could do an egg.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We don't need to do that. They don't, yeah.
Got a lot of random stuff in there, but milk is not one of them, sorry.
Okay. So as you can see, I can see that some areas are a little bit thin. So add that. And of course, a little bit of flour on my fingers can help with that. Kind of work it in.
Have you ever tried to make pie using the vegan butter?
So I did once, and I didn't care for it, though the person who I made it for loved it.
Oh, good.
So, and but it was like, I don't care for this. Now, I didn't follow a vegan recipe. I just substituted a regular pie recipe with one that had non-dairy butter.
Mm-hmm.
So I would follow a vegan recipe. Follow a recipe. And because if I didn't have one readily available, and I just substituted a vegan butter substitute, and it may not have been, it may not have, it could have tasted better if I had had a vegan recipe. So give that a shot. She loved it, but it was a gluten-free recipe. But the cookbook that I have now for gluten-free is so much better. And that thing tasted like cardboard that I made for her. And it was as brittle as, oh my gosh, I remember taking it. It was on Thanksgiving Day too. Remember, Fred? And it was so thin and brittle because it was non-gluten and vegan that when I was taking it out, it was a lavender blueberry pie, and all of a sudden it just snapped the crust, and it looked like somebody had taken an AK-47 to my pie. Blueberry blood juice was everywhere, but she loved it. But
that's when you whip up some cream. Oh no, I guess not vegan. I was like, you make it into a trifle and say you did that on.
Well,
purpose,
I mean, it cracked. It wasn't like totally blown apart, but it looked like somebody had shot my pie, and that was very traumatizing.
But it tasted good. That's the important.
She liked it.
Yeah.
But I tried one of the pieces of crust, and it was like, this tastes like cardboard. Sorry, folks. I was brought up on Southern decadence.
All right, so you're just kind of crimping it with.
I'm crimping it. I mean, you can use a fork. You know, different ways of crimping. And again, it doesn't have to look immaculate. I have to say, my mother, the way she did her crust, hers just looked so good. But I can make mine look good too. And also I can see where it's a little thin. You know, a piece of fruit looks like it's trying to stick out. So I just add a little bit of that to it. Of course, you can, if you have a sizable amount of dough left, you can make little dough cookies. Sprinkle, roll it out, you know, make it look like a square or however you want, and then sprinkle sugar and cinnamon. It's nice. My rule is try not to waste anything, if at all possible. Okay, so we got that. And again, the pie doesn't necessarily have to look picture perfect. But something decorative is always nice. So there you are. And now the last part is
need a knife.
A knife, yeah.
Yep.
If I can get a knife. And as you know, before I put the top on, I added butter to the filling, which always, you know, is always nice. So we do want to have where you have vents, so where the steam can come out. I like doing decorative slits.
Nice.
So there you go.
Looks great.
Thank you. So we put this in an oven at 400 degrees.
I might put it on a cookie sheet just so that I don't get juice in the bottom of it.
Is that in here?
No, I can grab you a sheet. 1 second. It's like cooking show magic. We're gonna go put the raw oven into the pie, or raw pie into the oven, and then suddenly we have a finished one already.
And is the heated one right here the first one?
Yep.
Excellent.
So Gary is just off screen, putting it into one of our teaching kitchen ovens. He'll be back in just a second.
And now we can slice the pie that I brought, and we have vanilla ice cream.
Yeah. Do you want me to set a timer for that one? How long?
45
Okay.
minutes. Let me see.
That's
45 minutes.
Will do. All right. 45 minutes for that one. And get you a bigger knife and the ice cream.
Yeah. Big spoon for the ice cream. I have the cutter for the pie.
Oh, okay.
I wish all of y'all could join us as we are about to enjoy freshly baked strawberry rhubarb pie. And this smells good.
Yeah, this is the part where I always wish that we either A, had smell-o-vision, or we could be in person in classes again, because I always feel bad, like, nope, you don't get to eat it now, sorry. But as you can tell, we are coming up to the end of class. We're going to end a little bit early today, which is totally fine. But if you have any last-minute questions for Gary, now is the perfect time to put them into the chat as we serve. Remember that you're on a little bit of a delay, so I'll leave it open for a minute or two just so we don't miss anybody. But we are going to wrap up shortly, so now's the perfect time for any questions.
And we have local Vermont ice cream,
Yes.
Stratford, organic vanilla, very good. Though I really love their maple.
Mm-hmm. The sweet cream one's really good too, because it's not vanilla, it's just sweet. It's good.
Sounds wonderful. Absolutely.
So yeah, as Gary's getting some slices out, thank you all so much for tuning in. Like I said, I will leave this open a little bit for questions. I'll send a survey out tomorrow along with the few recipe corrections that we just, for clarity, can put in there. And would love to know your thoughts on the class, ideas for other live streams you'd like to see from us. And eventually the recording will be posted. I apologize for the delay on all of them. We're just a little bit short-staffed, behind the 8 ball. They will be up eventually, and I will send a link out to everybody when they do go up. I see some questions coming in. So yes, this one that we just put in, we did not glaze, and Gary said that you can just skip the glaze. The one that we're cutting into right now, he did glaze at home. So it's up to you whether you follow the instructions that have you make the glaze or just go in unglazed. So there is no egg wash on the one currently in the oven. No, Fred gets the first one. Like you said, he always gets first dibs.
Oh.
Someone says, one problem I have baking pie is that the crust always seems to brown rather quickly.
Well, I should have brought it with me, but you can use aluminum foil, but I find that rather awkward to cover the rim, or I mean either at the very beginning or when you check and you can see the rim is kind of getting a little bit browner than the rest. I also have found a rim cover made from an aluminum.
Mm-hmm. It's like a pie shield.
Yeah, to cover it. Make sure you can find one large enough for a 9-inch pie plate. And that prevented this from, the crust cooking too quickly.
other questions at this point? I'm not seeing any other questions coming into the chat, but like I said, I know sometimes people, because you're on a delay, you're like frantically typing like, no, not yet, I'm still typing. So I'll leave it open for a minute as we serve a little bit more. Classes are recorded. Like I said, they'll be posted just later. We're working through a backlog. Like I said, unfortunately, you'll see Gary's other classes go up, but you have my email. Any questions that you have after the fact, you can always send them to me and I will pass them along to Gary. And like I said, if anybody bakes pies, send us pictures. It's really kind of gratifying for the instructors to see people making the recipes that they demo.
Oh yeah,
you can't
and
be here.
also if you try something new with it or experiment, let me know. And also, how do you like the pie crust? I have heard from folks from previous classes that they like the pie crust recipe, that they always had difficulty with not finding a good pie crust recipe, but they liked this one. And that makes me very happy. Okay, now this is my lunch. Folks.
Alex says, thank you so much. My pies always taste too buttery. I don't know if that's really, can it be too buttery? Maybe you want to try that half and half shortening butter thing.
Yeah, that's, if you're using an all butter crust, you may want to try half and half, like with this. If the filling has too much butter in his fruit, then just put a few pats of butter.
Marianne wants to know, does ceramic cook faster than glass? So the recipe specifies use a glass or ceramic pie plate. And what's the difference between like metal, glass, and ceramic in terms of cook times?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Now, with a tart pan, if it's a tart pan that's removable, and the recipe mentions that, then you know it's a metal thing. Quiches, you know, I've seen ceramic quiche things. That's a good question, and I would encourage you to Google that and see.
Glass pie plates because you can see how brown.
Right. Yeah, you can do that. I have both glass and ceramics, and for me, it's like, okay, what's clean?
Yeah.
But it may be interesting to see if there's a difference in that.
Someone has asked, any ideas for recipes with figs? I have 2 trees full of them, and I don't know what to do other than eat them fresh or fight the birds for them. You know, made fig pies.
Yes, I've seen fig tarts. I really like black figs.
The mission figs.
Yeah, I really love them. I've seen like a walnut, honey, fig tart. I've seen it when, think about fig Newtons.
Yeah,
fig bars. Cooking them where they're really.
Or make jam,
make
nice
jam.
Fig jam. Fig
but I would say just Google it. Fig pies, fig tarts, and you'll find a recipe. Now, any comments from the audience on the pie?
I'm gonna wait to try mine so that people don't hear me eating right next to the microphone.
Fred?
Fred, any thoughts? Fred says it's, quote, mad good.
Yeah, right. I have to say this is very good.
I'm excited to try mine. I can see that the pie is still warm and the ice cream is melting. It looks delicious. So I'm not seeing any other questions come in. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Like I said, it's really great to be able to have these live streams when we can't all be together in person in our kitchen. Hopefully one day we can get back to them, but we'll try to keep a few live streams on the schedule to keep connected with our audience across the country and across the world.
Yeah, this is such a joy for me to do this, and I'm very grateful to Carrie and City Market for letting me do this, the Pie Guy. I do have a website. Gosh, I should know it right now. But I also have a Facebook site, and look for Gary Stuard, the Pie Guy. And also, I do pie. If you're in Vermont, I do pie classes. I mean, I do pie parties at people's homes where I teach them how to make a pie or maybe 2 pies. And we have a lot of fun. So, and after we make the pie and bake, people have hors d'oeuvres, maybe some drinks, and then when the pie is baked, we eat the pie.
Great.
So, but anyway, thank you for letting me come into your homes and share with you the gospel, the good news of pie making, and just do it. You can do it. Enjoy the summer fruits and just celebrate good food with good friends.
Yeah.
So with that, the pie guy wishes you a delicious and fun-filled summer. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all.